This meeting, held in the Albion School Gymnasium, is an open session of the Roselle Park Board of Education, held under the Open Public Meetings Act of the State of New Jersey. Notice of this meeting was sent to the Star Ledger, the local source, the Home News Tribune, Borough Clerk, school offices, and district website. Madam Secretary, please call roll.
President Miller.
Here.
Vice President Sokol. Here. Mr. Balaban.
Here.
Mr. Bruckenstein.
Here.
Mr. Dam.
Here.
Mr. Gerton.
Here.
Mr. Harms. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Vida. We do have a quorum.
Fantastic. Please stand for the flag salute. Good evening, everyone. Before we start, I just wanted to make a note that the agenda for tonight, there was a change in the agenda that closed session started at 6 p.m. and not 6:30 as stated. And also, we were going to modify it. In the closed session, we spoke on a student matter. That would be number 2. Should be noted as number 2. We spoke on a student matter as well. With that, it's great to see everyone here tonight at Albion School. It's fantastic to see so many bright faces and involved parents. Welcome you. And we'd like to start with our first public participation portion of the evening. And what that means is if you want to come up and talk about an agenda item, the agenda, boys and girls, is this piece of paper that we have, and some of your parents might have, or if not, they're on out by the doors. And the agenda is what we're going to talk about today. It's like a list of things to do. And for the first public participation portion, if anyone wants to come up and say, I'm going to speak on agenda item number 2 or agenda item number 3, they can. What they have to do first is state your name and your address. And we'll open that up tonight.
I don't have it in front of me. I did read it over, but I will certainly read that language, and if we do need to modify, we can do Tuesday. Okay, but it's something that we will, as a committee, will definitely deal with. So thank you for bringing it to our attention. Oh, of course.
Ms. Steerson, could you repeat that language?
Sure. It's the policy defines dating violence as an act or incident characterized by physical, emotional, verbal, or sexual abuse, digital or electronic acts or incidents of dating violence, and/or patterns of behavior which threaten Yes, because we attended a training in October, and we do have a lot of interest points that we included to the policy.
If the language is not covered, we certainly will, you know, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The point of the public reading is in fact for the public's questions on the policy. So with the member of the public brings forward that policy question, and we're not able to specifically answer it. When we get to that point, I think we would consider here tabling it to our next public meeting. At that point, council will provide some advice.
Would that only have to be, I understand that you revise it for the first reading. Would it have to go back to the first reading because this is a major addition to the reading of passing the first policy? So in fact, it should actually go back to the first reading and then go to the second.
And the answer is, if we have a district policy in place, which I don't know as I sit here, that requires us to go through a first reading and then a second reading, then yes, we will go back to the first reading for that revision. If you don't have such a policy in place, then you can revise it.
Okay, so we'll check that out. Before next meeting, we'll see first or second. Right?
Exactly.
I really do believe that it should, in this particular case here, because it's the good, it should be first reading. Get that again to the public, so this way, if they have anything that we might have not caught in there, that they can bring to our attention. Tonight, which is a great thing, so I'm hoping it's the first reading again next month. Again, it might take a little longer to get it passed, but
And if the board agrees, we can always go to another first reading anyway, should it turn out based upon review.
Seeing there's no one else, we'll close the first public participation portion of the evening. Oh, I'm sorry. Here you go.
Jacob McGarrett, 612 Sheridan Lane, Roselle Park. Jacob McGarrett, 612 Sheridan Lane, Roselle Park. Ladies and gentlemen, students, members of the board, good evening. Was there any action taken in closed session in reference to the matters of the attorney-client? What was the response? What was the comment?
There was no action taken in closed session because it was a closed session meeting. And at this time, there's no further descriptor other than attorney-client privilege.
Any complaint?
I'm sorry?
And I'm talking to the board. A complaint can't be people practice. Well, we did the microphones. Like I'm talking to the microphone.
We will, Jake.
And the big one was Dan Cole outside waiting for you folks to open the door. You should take plan A or plan B. It was going to be people coming early. We had to go open early. Thank you.
Seeing there's no one else, we will close the first public participation portion of the evening, and now we're going to go into committee reports. Does anyone have a report from the committee? Mr. Dan?
Mr. President, I'd just like to say that on our next board meeting, December 2nd, we're going to have one of our first finance readings for a year.
Thank you, Mr. Dan. Seeing there's no one else, we'll close committee reports and we'll go to the superintendent's report. And after Mr. Garrido speaks, Mr. Salvo was scheduled to do his report on his state test scores, but we're going to push that back till after the student presentation. And parents are more than welcome to stay, but we understand it is school night, and you might have some homework to do, and more importantly, get a good night's sleep. So we're going to start with Mr. Grito. Good evening, Mr. Grito.
Good evening, Mr. Miller. Thank you very much, everyone. Boys and girls, congratulations. In a few minutes, you will be recognized for great achievement that you had. So congratulations, and congratulations, parents, for your children's achievement. My report tonight is on the event at the high school that happened yesterday. And I just wanted to report because I know there's some anxiety and some questions about what went on. Yesterday morning, before I do that, I did put up a letter on the website that I would, and I'm going to say that because this is coming. I did put up a letter on the website explaining some of the situation, as well as reassuring the parents of the high school, reassuring all the parents that our district is safe and secure. We did have a lockdown, a very lengthy lockdown, yesterday morning at the high school for almost an hour and a half. The nature of that lockdown was based on a threat on the social media from one of the students. No students was ever in danger. There were no weapons found at the high school. What happened was, when we found out through a student that there might be a situation in the building, Ms. Costa, the building principal, immediately locked down the school. The police was called, and they came in within a minute of the phone call. There was an investigation. The police also called the county sheriff's office to make sure that they brought the dogs to sweep the building and make sure there were no weapons. The staff, the students, the administrators at the school handled the situation very well and very professional. The police investigated. The school and the administrators did what we had to do. We followed the plans that we have. Every district has a security plan or a school response plan, and it was followed to the T. And everything worked out the way it should have been worked out. But what I wanted to really reassure the parents is that we have implemented security measures throughout all of our buildings in the district. And we're very proud of that. And we're very proud of the fact that we have a police department that also is very involved with the school. They were very thorough. They were very professional in the way they handled everything. And we have a safe school district because of that connection that we have with the police department. So, just to close up my report, I want to commend the administration at the high school, Ms. Costa, the entire staff, and the students as well, for really handling the situation as well as they did under the circumstances. And commend the Roselle Park Police Department for the job that they did. It was an amazing job. They really acted professional, and we really could not have been more proud of the way that the police and the administration at the school worked together. It was flawless. It was a smooth situation that really, under the circumstances, could have been something more serious. But again, I want to reassure the parents that there was no time that any of the children at the high school were in any danger. It was something that it was handled very well. And that's why we have the plans that we have in place. So once again, I wanted to reassure the parents of that, because I know that, I'm sure, there's a lot of conversations going on around the community regarding yesterday's event. And if there are any questions, any concerns, please do not hesitate to contact my office. I'll be more than happy to give you more information or just to let you know about our security plans that we have in place. So thank you, and once again, please go on the website. I did put up a letter with some information regarding yesterday's event. So thank you very much, and boys and girls, once again, congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garrido. And now we'll continue with the principal's report. Ms. Bell?
First of all, good evening, board members. We're so honored to have you here at Aldine with us. And to all of our Aldine family and students, thank you so much for being here to celebrate and commend our students on a job well done. It's falling perfectly coordinated so well that Mr. Salvo is going to give a report on the progress of the NJS. And right in front of us, we have some of the students who are responsible for such good work. So I'm glad that they're here tonight and we can celebrate their accomplishments. The list that I'd like to share tonight are students who achieved advanced proficiency, which according to NJS standards is anyone achieving a score of 250 or more. We have several students who managed to achieve advanced proficiency rating in more than one content area. And also I'm pleased to say that 4 of the students that will be honored tonight achieved perfect 300 scores. So I'd like to call them up. I'm sure what the best way to go is. So I'd like to start with Alana Fernandez. Alana's achievement was in math. Next we have Alex Fernandez for his achievement in science.
Ms. Bell, maybe they could go to the left since it's going to be such a large, intelligent group.
All right, great. Alex, you're number 1. Okay. Anastasia Kuzik for her achievement in language arts and science. Anthony Bien for his achievement in math and language arts. Brianna Vasquez for her accomplishment in science. Carolyn Pereira for her accomplishment in science. Casey McCall for her accomplishment in science. Christopher Luciano, who is commended for his perfect 300 score in math. Eric Lieberman for his accomplishments in both math and science. Gabrielle Elagio for her accomplishment in math. Arlene Grunhala for accomplishments in math and science. Jacob Vasquez for an accomplishment in math and science. Janaya Negron for accomplishment in science. Jared Foy for accomplishments in math and science. Jonathan Stevens for a perfect 300 score in science and accomplishment in math. Justin Michaud for a perfect 300 score in math and accomplishments in athletics. Caitlin Schulte for accomplishments in science. Caloki Mikros for accomplishments in math and science. Kylie Rodriguez for accomplishments in math. Madeline Almanzar for accomplishment in math. Matthew Stark for accomplishment in math and math. Maximilian McConnell for accomplishments in math. Natalia Asuna Borsinska for accomplishments in math and a perfect score in science. Omar Mufarja for accomplishments in math. Priyanka Dingara for accomplishment in math. Rada Geronimo for accomplishment in science. Remington Newhart for accomplishments in math. Rishabh Dingara for accomplishment in math. Ryan Marino for accomplishment in science. Samir Joking for accomplishment in math. Trishana Lindsay for accomplishment in both math and science. Victoria Henry for accomplishment in math and science. And Virginia Villa for accomplishments in math. Students, we're so proud of your accomplishments. Thank you for your hard work, and we expect
we got to scooch them in.
We feel special.
Okay, here. Come on up, girls. Come on up behind them. Come on up. Want them sitting? And first row, you guys have a seat. Chris, come on close. Sit, guys. Hey guys, we have one more.
I apologize, I inadvertently skipped Cameron for accomplishment in math and science. Cameron? And also Ray Perry for accomplishments in math and science as well.
Okay.
You're gonna make a circle. Guys, come over this way.
Okay, scoot you over this way.
Somebody right over here. Come on, you more. Come on. Just make a half circle, guys.
Can't we
Yes.
just sitting and kneeling and standing?
You're gonna want the kids to kneel? Sit like this.
Kind of go. Yeah, sit. Come in the front. Jonathan and Nancy, go real tall so you're over the girls' heads. No, girls, you sit on your body. So boys in the middle, you go real tall, and girls, you sit normal.
Big smile.
Everybody get closer.
Bring it closer.
Closer, closer, closer. No, together. Stay right there. Stay right there.
Max, come next to Remy. Max,
Everybody
come
open up
next to
your
Remy, hurry up.
certificates.
You guys move in. No, go this way. Don't close your face. We have too many smart children at LD. Don't cover your face. Yeah, we smart.
Did you guys move closer?
We smart.
One, two, but look forward. One, two, three.
It's gonna be on the news. I don't know.
We're good.
Good job, you guys.
See my phone.
Yes, stay there. Stay. Open. Good.
We have a very special announcement.
I'd also like to celebrate the art accomplishments of the two children standing in front of you. Their art was celebrated at a NJPAC award ceremony in September. This is Eunice Arevalo from first grade and Natalia Osuna in the 5th grade. And maybe you can tell both of us the names of your picture. Does your picture have a name? Not really? Okay. Untitled 1 and Untitled 2. But you should also turn around so you can see your pictures too. And those will be hanging in the hallways here at Aldi. And thank you to all the students in attendance tonight and parents. We're so proud of the accomplishments, academic and art-wise, of our wonderful children here. Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Why don't you go stand by John and Ryan? I'll take your picture. You want to stand by the table?
Okay, we're going to start. We're going to reconvene in about a minute. Okay, we're going to start up, and Mr. Salvo is going to make a presentation now under the superintendent's report concerning the New Jersey escorts. Before we start, I just want to say how impressed I was with Mr. Harms' teaching skills, getting the children organized for the pictures. Good job, Mr. Harms. All right, Mr. Salvo, good evening.
Good evening for those of you that stayed with us. Am I loud enough to...
Mr. Salvo.
There's one right
All right. Good evening, everyone. Tonight's standardized testing results are from 2013-2014, last school year. And I just wanted to introduce first who I am. My name is James Salvo, Director of Curriculum Instruction. And my role is to basically oversee the programs and the curriculum that are going on within the schools. So a lot of these results are results of programs we're implementing, and obviously always looking to improve these results. But at the same time, know that what we want going on in the classrooms is, at the end of it, are students and children who are learning. And I think that as a district, we continue to do a great job of trying to balance everything from the state and providing the best experience for our students we can. And I think these results are indicative of our efforts. Now, before we get into the test results, please note that this is the New Jersey Ask and the HESPA are the two standardized testing results that we are doing currently in 2013-14. That was the last time New Jersey Ask and HESPA were going to be administered. We are transitioning to a new testing system this year. So this report will look significantly different next year when we're doing this report. But this is based on New Jersey Ask results in grades 3 to 8 and HESPA results at the high school level in 11th grade. Now, before we get into the actual results, it's important to note some things that have changed. The last couple of years have been there's been a lot of changes taking place in schools and expectations, and of course with the test. The New Jersey Ask test in 2013, that's 2 years ago, the test, and that was the first time that the test was aligned to the Common Core state standards. In 3rd through 5th grade, they aligned the test 2 years ago to the Common Core. 3rd through 8th grade, for all grades taking the New Jersey Ask. This past year was the first year that 6th through 8th grade math aligned to the Common Core state standards. So it was a staggered change that in 2013, the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades math test was aligned to the Common Core, and this past year, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade was aligned to the Common Core for the first time. What that means, it means a lot of changes to what the content of the test was, but specifically for this past year, 6th through 8th grade ratios and relationships were addressed in 6th and 7th grade for the first time, which was a big change for students. That was something that was typically taught in 8th grade, but that was pushed down into 6th and 7th grade and tested last year for the first time. And mathematical functions were more heavily weighted in 8th grade, which was more of an algebra and high school math content, which was pushed down to 8th grade. And those are significant changes that affected scores across the state. And as I said, next year will be a transition to PARC, which will be an online assessment, which will be for grades 3 through 11. So for next year, we will also have grades 9 and 10 as tested grade levels. This year, it's 3, 8, and then 11. Some of the results that, before we go on to the actual numbers and percentages, some things that we wanted to celebrate. At the high school, we are now going from 2007 on, the high school has been able to meet the state targets that are set each and every year. Despite the increasing percentage of economically disadvantaged students each year, every year that percentage of students that are deemed to be economically disadvantaged and identified by the state, every year that has increased from 2007 up till now, without fail, every year that has increased, and for the high school to maintain those excellent results is quite an accomplishment. At the same time, 1/3 of the students' population has consistently, we've had ebbs and flows as to what language it was, but at all times from 2007 till now, 1/3 of the students were speaking another language other than English consistently in their homes. When you think about meeting state targets for language arts and math, when you have 1/3, 1 out of every 3 students in your school are speaking a language other than English in the home, that's a major accomplishment right there. At the middle school, some other celebrations, there's everything from here on out will be district-wide. At the middle school, we had 18 perfect scores in math and 1 in language arts, which I think in all my time, 9 years of being in the school district, I don't think we've had a perfect score in language arts to date, and that was the first time. That's something that across the state has been an enigma. How can you get the students to be advanced proficient, much less to be a score of a 300 in language arts? That's been kind of the unreachable goal, and we had 1 student this year in the middle school last year who reached that goal. Robert Gordon School had 7 scores of 300 in math. Aldine had 2 perfect scores of 300 in math and 2 perfect scores in science, and over at Sherman School we had 18 perfect scores of 300 in math and 4 perfect scores in science, which those are testaments to those students that are really able to reach those high levels of performance. For the results, this is the 3rd grade New Jersey ASK proficiency results. As you can see, what we did is we broke it down to all students and then general education students. All students include every subgroup. When we break down to general education students, we're removing students who are identified as special ed and ESL. Fourth grade results, this is math and language arts results. Science are together for just 4th and 8th grade. The students are only tested for science in grades 4 and again in grade 8. So we have those scores down at the end of the presentation. As you can see, something that we've debated about presenting them linear from 2011 to 2012, 2013, 2014, or to do it to track the students as they go through to kind of get a clear picture. And one of the things that we've, as an administrative team, trying to find trends and trying to find some information that will really paint the picture. One of the big things, is one of the reasons why the state has moved away from New Jersey ASK, is there are some inconsistencies. So as we go through the presentation, you'll see some areas there's a sharp increase, some there's a sharp decrease. Some it stays flat. One area you'll have students go up in the general ed area and they'll go down when it's all students. So there are some inconsistencies, but at the same time we're looking at more at an overwhelming trend, and you'll see that from what you're seeing here in 4th grade, and you look and compare here in 5th grade, which one of the statistics that I look at is when you look at 2012 to 2013. This is something that, based on what we knew was happening and changing with the test, there was a lot pushed down from the middle school into the 5th grade test between 2012 and 2013. And what we expected to see was a drop in those scores, and it went from 91 to 82% of all students being proficient in math. Now that our teachers and our students, we were able to get a handle on what the test was looking for, what the expectations are, and what the standards are, our teachers were able to bring that scores back up from 82% back up to 89, which is a little bit closer to where we were statistically before the massive changes that came to the test. We go over into the middle school. And as you see, a reminder that this 2014 is the first year that the math scores were aligned to the Common Core standards. So as expected and as across the state, from 2013 to 2014, there was a decline in scores. It's something that is expected, not wanted, not satisfied with, but at the same time, it was something that we foresaw that coming. Obviously, a lot of the changes that we're looking at and implementing currently in language arts, the numbers that we're seeing, and a lot of the language arts are not what we want to see as end results, but at the same time, it is indicative of what's going on across the state. With the language arts has always been a more challenging assessment to get the scores on par with where you're looking at the math scores. In 7th grade, we're looking at some sharp increases in math and consistency in the language arts area. And when we look into 8th grade New Jersey Ask, our math scores declined, but our language arts scores were relatively stable across where we were. As we celebrated with the high school earlier, the results have been consistently meeting state standards, and I think one of the main takeaways from the assessments are the HESPA has been a relatively stable assessment. There have not been massive changes with the HESPA over the years, as there have been with the New Jersey Ask. And the way that the state has set up their assessment system, 3rd through 8th grade, they're supposed to be early warning signals for districts to gauge what's going on in your school system. And they were not intended to be standalone snap judgments as to how a school system is doing. They're meant to be early warning systems to see, are you on track to graduate students and send them off to be successful in college and career? And when you look at our results being stable at the high school level, meeting state targets from 2007 and beyond, and to see where we are at the high school currently, what we're trying to accomplish, we are accomplishing by having our students get into the high school, graduate from the high school, and enter college and in the workforce and be successful. So there are definitely areas in these testing results that we are working diligently for improvement. There are areas where we're celebrating, and there are areas that we're not able to make a judgment based on the fact that there's been so much change in what the expectations and what the tests are looking for. But at the same time, we are working very hard as a district, teachers, administrators, and most importantly, our students are really working hard to improve these results and to continue churning out top-notch effort and results regardless of what we asked of them. Our science results. That is the last snips of the data that we have. A couple of things that the superintendent, the administrative team, and the district as a whole has been working on. Some things that relate back to the strategic plan that was put in place last year. Some of these things that are absolutely contributing to the success and the improvement of these scores. Our full-day kindergarten implementation is underway. We have full-day kindergarten at each of our elementary schools, and although we're not going to see immediate results, but this is something that's going to set up a strong foundation for our students moving forward. We have the creation of an ECC director / literacy coach position that will be coming to the district soon. We have a person identified. The start date is later on in 2014, before the calendar year starts, so that'll be a new position to help us and guide us both at the Early Childhood Center and also in the early primary grades. We've updated our kindergarten through 12th grade language arts curriculum, and that's something that our staff is working extremely hard to implement and to learn new practices and really train themselves so that they can make the optimal learning environments for our students to be literacy-rich environments to meet the Common Core. We've refined building schedules to support these initiatives, and we've made inroads to really provide a wider array of professional development opportunities for staff and to really do everything we can to make sure that what our staff needs, we're doing what we can to provide it so that they're comfortable with these new initiatives, with these new standards, with this new testing format, with a lot of new things coming, and our staff is working incredibly hard to implement these things and to do them well. Ongoing initiatives, these are three of the majors. There are a lot of things going on. There's a lot of things coming down from the Department of Education. There's a lot of things coming from a lot of areas, but some of the main things that have been going on consistently in our schools is developing an understanding of the PARC, the online assessment that we'll be taking in the spring for the first time, the Common Core state standards, which are heavily linked to that PARC assessment to really understand what the Common Core means and what that means for classroom expectations. Our balanced literacy framework is what we're working very hard in K through 8th grade to get the practices in place so that the Common Core is attainable for our students. And we've really spent a lot of time on developing and articulating grade level and district expectations so that we have more consistency than we've ever had before across schools And particularly at the elementary level with 3 schools, with 3 neighborhood schools, this is something that is really going very well at this point. Continuous job embedded training, as we said, with the professional development opportunities, and significant investment in a wide array of literacy resources. Nothing is more important than exposure to a vast number of genres, different formats of text, online text, in books, novels, articles. Just the expectations from the Common Core State Standards span a wider array of genres and text formats than our students have ever seen, and that's really putting a lot of pressure on the teachers to expose and teach in different ways, and that's something that we're really working hard to make that manageable and doable for our students. And a big push has also been co-teaching special education models. So instead of students who are identified leaving the general education classroom and receiving instruction in a different area of the school, that we have co-teaching so that there's a special education teacher and a homeroom teacher together all day long. So you have your extra support for students that have learning needs, but they're in that classroom environment and they're there with their peers in that classroom all day long. So that's something that's going on very well around the district as well, and it's something that is, we believe is going to improve our test scores moving forward and provide a better learning environment for those students that need that extra support. A couple of things as I wrap up this presentation. These 4 statements are all research-based, results of study, results of true research that has been proven that these 4 statements are true. And if you compare them to the statements on the right, these are also statements that are the results of research and testing and proved to be true. And basically why I included these are, depending on what you're looking at with test scores, you're going to find positives, you're going to find negatives, and it's really, with anything with statistics and percentages, it's what you make of them, and it's what you want to see happen from them. And there's a lot of debate about the value of testing, and is it the right thing to do, is it the wrong thing to do, but the bottom line is, these are high-stake tests that we as public educators are required to address, and we think we do an excellent job of doing that here in Roselle Park. And with all of this emphasis and presenting and notifying and doing everything that we do with the test scores, I think the one thing that we do better than anywhere else is that we know at the other end of these test scores are children that need to learn, and that children that need to be supported in the best way possible. And no matter what those standards are, no matter what the expectations are, that they're students, they're children, and that they need to be nurtured and brought through the school in a positive learning environment. I think we do that better than anywhere else in New Jersey, anywhere else in the country, and I think regardless of where our deficiencies are in some of those areas that we want to improve on, the areas that we're looking to continue to keep improving on, and the areas that we're seeing success, I think that our schools are optimal learning environments for students, and we're very, very proud of that. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any questions that I can't answer tonight, feel free to email me at any time. I'd be more than happy to share the presentation or any other details relating to the standardized test scores with you at any time. So, thank you.
Do you mind taking a question?
Sure.
The co-teaching model, as opposed to when we had the ASP and the HESPA before, because we didn't have that before. But the co-teaching special education model that we're employing, I guess in preparation for Park and Common Core assessment, basically we're taking all the special education students and adding another teaching resource to that classroom. Is that what we're doing? Is that what you said, or did I misunderstand that?
No, I think that in a nutshell, what co-teaching is, typically when a student is identified as special ed, you'll find out by their IEP as to what their needs are. Their needs might be in math, they might be in language arts, it might be in both, and with a resource room model, during that math period, the student would go, leave their general ed classroom.
Okay, so it's like a pull-out from the regular...
Well, that's what resource room.
Okay.
With co-teaching is, rather than have that special education teacher working with those students outside of their environment, they're in that classroom, and it's a co-teaching model.
So it's not a whole day.
Yes, we do have models right now ongoing where it might not be for the entire day, but we also do have full-day co-teaching models. Right now at Robert Gordon School, there are 3 co-teaching models in 2nd grade, in 4th grade, and in 5th grade. At the middle school, there's a co-teaching model in 6th grade, and at both Sherman and Aldine School, there are part-time days of co-teaching. So that means that the teacher will be pulling students to a resource room for maybe the morning, but spending the afternoon in a co-teaching model in a classroom with a homeroom teacher as the dual teachers.
I mean, in the past, with the ASK and HESPA, I mean, the state really can't argue that it wasn't discriminating against the, special populations of students, because they didn't bump up their scores automatically. They didn't produce curves or anything. They basically scored every student irrespective of his abilities the same way as general population students and as general education students. But I think, it's incumbent upon the districts, and I'm glad we're having, all these resources added, and the ingenious nature of our teaching staff, will add to this. Hopefully will propel our students forward. But, it's up to us to build up our students, basically, and the state, that's basically what the state is saying at this point.
Absolutely, and the reason we're going in a co-teaching model is that it's shown with research to be the best and most effective way to teach students that have those needs. But it is a change, and it is something that has to be learned, and to have 2 teachers working together in a classroom all day has unique challenges that come about while you're doing it. So it's something that we're doing step by step and gradually, and really learning from our successes, addressing the negatives, and thinking it through, and doing it very carefully as we go throughout the grade levels. But I think the parents that are in those situations are the biggest proponents of it, that they see that their children are with their peers all day and receiving that support. And I think parents of students that don't have IEPs also feel that the positive is there's another adult in the classroom. And even if they're not working directly with your child, just another adult in the classroom, and another adult that has a teaching degree and is trained to be in that classroom, and certainly benefits everyone that's around that situation.
And I think
I'm a co-teacher, so can I add something? If you don't mind.
I don't know.
What it does is it allows the students to gain access to the general ed curriculum that sometimes they would miss when they're pulled out. So let's say in 5th grade they leave to go to math and they do a lower level math. When they stay in the classroom, they're exposed to that 5th grade level math, but then they can also be pulled at times for small group instruction that can work on their specific needs as well.
It's the least restrictive environment that you can find anywhere, and that's what research shows that it has been the best model for students with special needs, because they are exposed more so with 2 teachers in one room. And you're absolutely
I appreciate that. The other thing is this testing will all be online.
Yes.
This part testing.
And the Strand Park is everything's online.
But I mean the special ed students, or the challenged students, physically, whatever. I mean, how are we preparing them, for the transition to online testing? Maybe they're better than the teachers, some of the students with the keyboard. I don't know.
Yeah, the technology part of it, you're absolutely right. I think that,
No, I'm just saying in general.
again, the challenge for all the students is going to be the same as the New Jersey ASC or HESPA, because it is a challenging test. I mean, it's aligned to the Common Core. The Common Core is very difficult. There's a lot of critical thinking that students need to use. So yes, it's still going to be challenging.
But we have a lot of practice and stuff.
Oh, we absolutely are practicing.
Okay.
Yes.
Unfortunately, with Park, there has been a lot of changes. Things are still evolving from the state in terms of direction, in terms of definitives as to what will, what won't, what is absolutely going to be one way, and they still have not released the administration manual. So, in terms of exactly what the situation is going to look like, we don't know what it looks like yet. But this is a situation across the entire country, preparing for the online tests that are brand new. There's a lot of anxiety, but I do think that all in all, our students are prepared. We've got a lot of technology. We put a ton of technology in our hands over the last couple of years, last year to this year. I think we've purchased close to 500 laptops that are deployed throughout the district. The exposure to technology is there. Exactly what the park test is going to ask them to do, we have a pretty good idea of it, but until we know exactly what it is, it's a little bit of an anxiety area when you talk about park testing. I think our teachers would attest to that. But in terms of the big picture, are we prepared? I think we're much more thoroughly prepared than a lot of districts. I spend a lot of time at meetings with districts in Union County and at New Jersey workshops, and I would say that what we're doing, what we're prepared for, and what we've been doing the last couple of years, I think our students are in a very good position to do well in this test.
Thank you.
Mr. Sullivan, I just want to, Mr. Relevant had mentioned something about the special ed population.
Right.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but on those standardized tests, depending on their IEP, there is modifications to the standardized tests, or accommodations, right? So there is, and the expectation is there would be, with standardized testing going forward, some accommodation.
Actually, there's another online testing format called the dynamic learning maps, which was supposed to be for the students that could not take the park test. The latest I heard is that dynamic learning map is not going to be instituted this year, that that may be a year off, but there are accommodations for park. As what I understand it to be now is that everyone has access to the modifications, and it's up to the district to let the system know that whether you're classified as special ed, ESL, or general ed, you have access to all the modifications that the testing has available. But it's really left up to the districts to pick and choose the modifications they want to match what the students' needs are. And obviously the students that are classified as special ed, they have an IEP that spells out some of those modifications that they will need on testing, so that is, that will drive our information we get to the state for what we want our students to have in terms of modifications.
Right, so our philosophy though, I guess, to Mr. Val, to reassure Mr. Val, that isn't changing.
No.
If it's technically available, we're going to match what their IEP says or whatever the case may be, just as we've done in the past.
Yeah, and one thing that the state is looking at now that I think is the best model, the best system, is not only looking at student achievement, but also individual student growth. And if you remember from the school performance report, they give 2 grades. They give one for student achievement and one for student growth. And I think the student growth model is probably the best done because not every student is going to be proficient, but students can grow at their own level, at their own pace. So, for example, if you have a score of 100 to 300, what's wrong with the student getting 130 and moving up to 150 or 160? That's growth. So, I think that's encouraging.
Yes.
The No Child Left Behind law obviously is no longer in existence, but that's all they looked at. Student achievement, cross the line, 200 proficient, and that's it.
But there was no containment.
There was no containment. If you remember from the school performance report, we did very well in student growth.
Yeah.
Okay, we did. It showed that our students, it showed growth at the individual level. So, that's, and with testing, Mr. Salvo did say something that was very important to information. The HESPA has really been the only consistent test that has not changed. The standards have not changed. NJAS changes every year. Language arts, it changes. What they do, they take the raw score, they move it around, to make 40 proficient or 61 years. So it's very difficult to compare one to the other. And, as you can see, more consistency when you look at the HESPA. There's more consistency. In the NJAS, it fluctuates quite a bit from one year to the other.
Mrs. Foy, did you have a question?
I just had a question about what you said about there being accommodations or modifications for park that the district can choose. Well, what access do parents of non-IEP students have to request these accommodations for our children? Is that...
That's a good question. The accommodations are, from what I understand of them, they're not as robust as I think you, in terms of...
Well, we're used to having questions read to the students for just more time. That would be something that they all...
And the accommodations for park, that's been one of the most fluid situations, that there hasn't been a definitive, this is the list of what there will be. But I think one of the major accommodations from the past has been extended time for students. The park, and I think we all saw this in the pilot last year, the park time that they had set on task was incredibly long. I think the most difficult thing that we did during the pilot testing was that you had limits that once the testing started, no one could leave the testing area until 50 minutes or whatever the time was. Students were done with less than half of that time. So that's one of the main things that park is changing. But they built in enough time so that the idea of extended time is only going to be won't be needed as much. And for those students that need it, some of it will be built in, but then you could ask for additional. But I think that's one of the things we got in the pilot was that they gave almost twice as much time, and just managing behavior turned out to be the hardest thing at the tail end of the test because everyone was finished with way before we had to have it down to the second that you didn't go through that.
Will there be more information given to the district prior to the test that would be able to be shared, or is it really going to be what we see that first day in March?
No, the administration manuals are supposed to be released. I think the latest date now was early January. Districts are waiting with bated breath to get these information. Is that'll be telling as to what the parameters of the testing situation will look like, transition between, how much time is it going to take to boot up. So there's a lot of technological setup and structure of the test that districts everywhere are just waiting anxiously to get this information, and the state just hasn't finalized that yet. So.
Just as a teacher, we're just concerned on when we can plan our class trips at the end of the year, because we've always planned them around when New Jersey asks is, and now there's 3 weeks in March, 3 weeks in May.
And
it's just hard to plan.
Ms. Boyd, I know the administration is working on a master schedule for, it's so difficult because the windows are so, but we should have a master schedule out soon for the staff as well as for the public.
Thank
We will.
Just a trivial thing.
No,
That's very
I
important.
agree with you.
They've already started pestering us. Where are we going? Where are we going?
Yes, of course.
I think everybody wants the same answers that we want, and it's not so much, I can understand where the state's coming from and not giving us information and not being absolutely positive about it, but I think across any meetings, any workshops, anywhere I've been, everyone wants it so they can give it to the teachers so that you can see where are we going, and what is my calendar going to look like in 4 months, as opposed to just being a giant question mark for blocks of time, which that's unsettling.
Thank you.
And also talk about like simple modifications. For instance, I'm a third grade teacher, and my children are going to be taking the tests on laptops, with the pad. But I asked my principal, I said, we're going to get the mice to use, because some of my kids like using mice. Yeah, right. Yeah, and I mean, but that can be, that we're going to use that for the park testing of my kids, because some of my kids just like using mice. But because, some of them use 2 fingers, the whole drill, where it confuses, and it could, snap through the cursor during it. But that's just one little thing, because you're trying to think of how can you make these, basic accommodations, and, barring IEPs, like Mr. Burton was referring to.
All children.
Yeah, absolutely. And it'll be very interesting. On November 10th, the governor convened a 9-person committee to study state testing, and as far as the commission to review student assessments, and in particular studying the volume, frequency, and impact of student assessments in the state. So this report is due by the commission. An initial report is due by the end of the year, with a final report due in July. So keep your eyes and ears open for that report. I mean, I'd like to see what they say, because, information from Park is sometimes a little hard to get, and sometimes it's changing. And
you're not going to be able to compare it to
No, you're not, absolutely.
Exactly. Right. Sure. Well, Mr. Sabo, we thank you so much for your presentation, and have a good evening.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr.
Mr. Kirsten, good evening.
Saul Kirsten, 150 Berwyn Street. I'm sorry, I wasn't paying attention before. So, are these grades, are these rankings a combination of all the proficiencies, or is it just proficient, partially proficient, or advanced proficient?
It's all proficiencies, so advanced proficient and proficient put into one number.
Right, because I look at the actual reports, and if you just, and I guess maybe that's where I need to ask the question answered. I thought the baseline was going to be proficient, correct? So on that baseline, with the general population throughout the grades, correct? I thought they were kind of more in line with the decrease and the decline from previous years. And I guess the question, because now you have Common Core coming up next year, you got PARC, you got a test that no longer will be the gauge. So I guess teachers and administration, everyone is kind of stuck somewhere. Because even though the proficient, because the 3 levels is partially proficient and then advanced, and the proficient levels, it declined. And you had stated, I guess for the 3rd and 4th, they already had 2 years. 5th and 6th had already had, last year started with the, correct. And I was reviewing last year there were these goals that were set. As either the board or the administration or yourself reviewed those goals that were set to see where you've been this year. And it's kind of hard because next year, this all goes away. And you kind of start from scratch, but could this be a good time for the district to see a 5-year span, a 10-year span? This is where we were, and then start gauging that from scratch, but also using where there were deficiencies, because it started out from what I was reviewing about 5 years ago. It was language arts that was kind of on the decline. And now that's become stabilized in some grades, and math has now become a determining factor in the decrease. And I know, Mr. Garrido, you came in stating that that was your goal to, and I agree with it, that language arts needs to be a kind of a stabilizer, and math will be worked on as well. So what does the district and the board and everyone kind of take from, say, a 5-year study of the grades, knowing that everything's going to change, but there's still some core elements that need to be worked on? It's not a question to be answered now, but maybe in a I hate to put things in committees again, but to kind of have something to review, like a strategic plan, and say, in 5 years, this is what, for proficiency, for general, for all, and understanding that PARC will change everything, then to start going back.
So I think that's a very good point, a very good question. And NJ asking out of PARC, it's going to be very difficult to gauge or give a 5-year span of grades. That's why internally we are doing some measures also here, benchmark assessments we're doing. Obviously there are other assessments that teachers do in the classroom because you really cannot rely on one assessment only. You need to rely on multiple assessments. And we are working with the state initiatives. SGOs are part of it now. So SGOs are assessments, benchmarks twice, 3 times a year that are done. So we are also going to analyze that data as well to make sure that if there are any gaps in the curriculum, if there are any issues with student learning, we can take a look at it, because you're right, it's not going to be 1 year that we got. It's probably going to be 2 to 3 years before we can get a good gauge on PARC. There's going to be a baseline. There's probably going to be some kind of changes year 2. There's probably going to be some changes year 3. So it's probably going to take 3, possibly 4 years before we see consistent scores come out of PARC. So we need to have our internal gauges here, I guess, to make sure that things are working the way we want it to work.
And that's a big problem. The test keeps changing.
Right.
I know even when I was there, it really, every year, you'd be doing something, and then all of a sudden, all the things that they were looking for change. So that's, I think, where that part of going up and down is happening.
And I understand it. It's just human nature. I mean, if these scores kept going up, I'd be like, this is great.
Right.
You know, and I'm not saying that you're making an excuse, because I don't believe that at all. I believe you're trying to find the reason behind or what the pattern is. So I appreciate that that's being looked at in that kind of critical eye, as opposed to saying, well, you know, it's just these tests. Because if they were all going up, everyone would be like, this is great. And does anyone know if the state or the Department of Education has some kind of milestone to compare what the park results are in comparison to the ASP results? Because when they come out next year, this may all go up or may all go down, and then someone's going to go, well, how do I compare this? Does anyone know if the state has done that?
You're not going to be able to.
Correct. No,
And I don't think the state has an answer for that either.
I think that there will be a comparison made. I mean, Park is going to measure in 5 categories, which the way I interpret it is 3, 4, and 5 will be the equivalent of proficient and advanced proficient. Level 1, level 2 will probably be deemed to be partially or below proficiency. 3 at proficiency, 4 and 5 will be 2 different versions of advanced. So I can foresee there is going to be a correlation between the New Jersey ASP number and a Park number. And it's going to be below proficient, proficient, advanced proficient, and the 5 delineators that Park has. But whether they have that cross check, is it valid? Does it make sense?
Exactly.
Is it something we can put stock in? That's yet to be seen. I think that's why, as a district, we're putting a lot more time and effort into using reading levels at the elementary and middle school level, using internal benchmark writing scores, so that regardless of what happens with ASP, Park, and whatever data we're being judged on by a state level, we have data that we have complete control over to say our reading levels.
Internally to say.
And I think that's something we're working really hard. In the midst of everything else going on, we're also asking teachers to get very comfortable with data analysis, which unfortunately it's yet another thing we're doing, but at the same time we see where we're going and where Park is going to be a huge change, and how are we going to measure ourselves against that. So we want to have reliable numbers that we can look at and say, this is what we're going to base our changes and decisions on. And if it's in line with Park, well, then Park will become a valid measure as well, but we're not sure if that's going to be the case. So we need to have our own set of numbers and data to make decisions on for next year and the year.
And then thank you very much. And just my last, question is, again, there's Common Core, there's a full-day kindergarten. There's a lot of gauges that are now just changing the entire game. Does the board or the district have any internal mechanisms or protocols that they'll try to incorporate? Because it's going to be you're going to be juggling a lot. Year 1, I mean, you're going to have Park, Common Core, full-day kindergarten. So anything and even with full-day kindergarten, you really won't get anything until 4 years later, because then you've got that 3rd grade Park. Are there any internal discussions as to how to start juggling all those balls to try to make it as cohesive as possible?
We're collecting assessment data from kindergarten up, and we're in the process of designing ways we're going to collect pre-K assessment data so that we can see our students that are in the 3-year-old, 4-year-old classes, are they ready for kindergarten, and are they more prepared than students that aren't going to our preschool program? So we have a lot of data coming in, and now it's a matter of becoming...
And that's what's going to drive our decisions, is the data that we compile from all these things.
And our math vehicle in the elementary school, Envision Math, I mean, that's aligned to the Common Core state standards, and Envision Math is created by the people who created the park. I mean, it's aligned with that. So, that's kind of in line, in place, because,
So there are things already in place that are kind of combining everything.
Yes.
Well, our Park is, my understanding is, it not to interrupt you, correct me if I'm wrong, Park is a measurement of our curriculum, and we've aligned our curriculum. We put it in, it's just one of the measurement tools. There's internal measurement tools, and this is an external measurement tool. And it's all
And I think,
to
come up with something now to say this is going to work for us, or this tells us what we're doing right or wrong.
Right.
I don't think that we can even do that in the first year or even the second year until we, and our first is in, as you said, 3rd grade when we take the Park for our kindergarten to see how that turns out to where we were. And I'm not even sure that's going to show us either, because of what changed in here so many times.
And I think that's one of the things that we've tried to reassure our teaching staff on, is that with everything changing from the state level, SGOs, evaluation, tenure law, but all these changes, let's take this time to get ourselves ready and to get our programs in place and to get all this data processes in place now so that when Park's reliable, we also have internal data that we've gotten to a point where that's also reliable so that we can, if it takes 10 years for Park to become reliable data, we'll have mastered our own data.
We'll be ahead of that game, because I don't trust them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kirsten. And thank you, Mr. Salvo, for your presentation. And now we're going to move on to policy, where we are tabling we need a motion to table, pardon me, thank you, the district policy second reading. Mr. Harms, second. Mr. Burton, we will table that for the review. And now we're on to personnel. I'd like someone to make a motion to approve agenda items. Oh, forgive me, I'm sorry. Trying to rush this along, I guess. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
To table item number 1, Vice President Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Balaban?
Yes.
Mr. Bruckenstein?
Yes.
Mr. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Gerton?
Yes.
Mr. Harms?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Vita?
Yes.
President Miller?
Yes.
On roll call, motion carries to table item number 1.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And now we're on to personnel, where I'd like someone to make a motion to approve agenda items 2 through 5, 2 being district substitute, 3 being maternity leave of absence request, 4 being staff appointment, and 5 being degree change. Mr. Gerton, second.
I'll second.
Ms. Sokol, any questions or comments? So there none. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Vice President Sokol?
Yes.
Mr. Balaban?
Yes.
Mr. Bruckenstein?
Yes.
Mr. Dan?
Yes.
Mr. Gerton?
Yes.
Mr. Harms?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Vita?
Yes.
President Miller?
Yes.
On roll call, motion carries.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. And now we're on to education, where I'd like someone to make a motion to approve agenda items 6 through 8, 6 being educational trip requests, 7 being workshop attendance requests, and 8 being 2014-2015 progress target action plan. Do I have a motion? Mr. Nelson, second. Second, Mr. Bruckenstein. Any questions or comments? Just want to wish the robotics team good luck on December 6th down in Tinton Falls. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those items are passed. And now we're on to business, where I'd like someone to make a motion to approve agenda items 9 through 13. 9 being monthly certification, 10 being approval of bills, 11 secretary treasurer report, 12 approval of transfers, 13 being use of buildings and grounds. Do I have a motion? Mr. Dam, second. Mr. Gerton, any questions or comments? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Those items are passed. And now we're on to continuing business. Mr. Garrido?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. As of November 18th, today, we have 2 students that have been identified not residing in Roselle Park, and they have been removed from the school. Currently, there are 2 students that are under investigation, and I will have a report at the next meeting. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, pardon me. Now we're on to new business. Does anyone have new business? This past Saturday, I was fortunate enough to represent the Roselle Park Board of Education at the New Jersey School Board's annual delegate assembly, and I was honored to take as my guest board member-elect Mr. Bowman with me to observe the machinations of the New Jersey School Boards Association, and that's basically where representatives from school boards all over the state of New Jersey convene, and this was down in Mercerville, and what happens is they elect officers, presidents, and vice presidents, and they talk about the state of New Jersey School Boards Association, which is very, very strong under the executive director, Larry Feinsod, who is leading and securing many grants and just building up the New Jersey School Boards Association to be a financially solvent and strong organization. Well, what does that mean to us in Roselle Park? It means that they're offering more programs and more services, and they've kept our annual dues flat over the past couple of years, and they're relying less and less on the school board dues that we pay annually, and they're relying more, and they're getting more outside grants from companies and other sources. So his hope is in 5 to 10 years, it's almost they're relying only on 20% on our dues and more on outside grants, which is a financially strong position that they're in right now. But anyway, we went down there, and there's what happens also. Our boards of education have resolutions that they want to pass, or they want to put before the New Jersey School Boards Association, and these resolutions are something that, like, we could pass a resolution saying, we're not in favor with, say, one of Trenton's policies that we have, and we could pass a resolution, but we want to put that into the language of the New Jersey School Boards Association. Well, what does that mean, putting it in a language? It means it becomes part of the New Jersey School Boards Association's political platform. So when they're lobbying in Trenton for us, that's part of the language that's in there. And all the delegates get to vote on it, and it's really interesting. I mean, they had 3 resolutions there that we were voting on, that I was voting on at the time, and the other delegates that were there. And, I mean, for instance, it's just like advisory, like for one resolution from South Plainfield was advisory opinions being made public, or not necessarily from the School Ethics Committee. If we had a question on school ethics, we would go to the School Ethics Commission, and they would make a decision, and then it would come down to us, but they would never make it public. Well, this resolution, which was passed, is now saying that now these advisory positions can be made public, unless it involves an individual who requests to make it private in a certain instance. So that was one of them. And just briefly, the other one was as far as sending districts, and this came from Greenwich Township in Warren County, and people who send students to outside sources to get the special services that they need. These receiving districts have been raising tuition rates over the past few years to meet their costs, and obviously the cut in funding. So they're passing on that cost to sending districts. And the sending districts are like, we can't afford it because we're hitting our public with all these tax increases, and they've been supported, but in the future they're not going to be. So they wanted to put a 2% cap on what receiving districts can charge sending districts, and that was debated, and the language was put in where it was accepted, except that they took out the not to exceed 2%, because they said there should be a statutory cap, but it will be reviewed, and because it's hard to say, well, how can you just set a number like that, like we were imposing, through Trenton. But so now that cap would be flexible, but there would be a cap, so we put that in the language. And so those were the main resolutions. There was another one on just conflicted board members voting on hiring a superintendent. But that was a really interesting experience, and it was a second conference the delegate assembly that I attended, and I look forward to one of our board members to represent us, because I think it's a unique experience to go down there and meet other people in Trenton, the ones who are lobbying for us as a school board, and also the ones who are working with us, and so it was a unique opportunity. So I just wanted to say that, and if we have any resolutions, I will find out the date. But if we ever have resolutions that we need to get that in, and we can be a part of that and be active in that, and have them lobby for us as well. So that ends.
Chris, if I could recommend one, because this would be an easy one. In the past, when we voted on teachers of the year, districts selected teachers of the year, and they're celebrating the trend. Previously, the state gave like a $500 stipend for to each teacher, and they could purchase classroom supplies, etc. Then, all of a sudden, like 15 years ago, it was 10, 15 years ago, they eliminated that stipend. So, I mean, we can make a resolution to introduce that stipend.
Sure.
Teachers a year. And I could research it for you.
No, that would be great under school operations if you could do that. Just the last thing, Union School Boards County Association, they had a meeting on this past week that I attended, and it just went over some it was school finance that was in that meeting. But the neat thing was, others things that were happening in Trenton, and there were some bills the legislature passed, 7-bill package, and there were a couple of them that I'm going to investigate a little bit more and get back to you on. But one was providing state aid for certain adult education programs, and I'm going to investigate that bill, A3341, because if there's funding available for adult education programs, I mean, that's something that we can reach out to our community right here in Roselle Park, and any additional funding and revenue is worth exploring, and that's one of many that I'm going to look at. So that's it. And now, anyone else with something for new business? That being said, we're going to go to the second public participation portion of the evening. If you would like to speak on any topic, please come forward, state your name, address, and what you'd like to speak on.
Jacob McGillis, 612 Sheridan Avenue, Roselle Park. I want to start off with thanking Joe Vita for coming to the Concerned Citizens of Roselle Park meeting and sharing about 35 minutes of his wisdom in the realm about the Board of Education, etc. Is there an update? I heard grants. Is there an update on grant money? A grant, what they call that, Mr. Writer?
The grant writer.
Grant writer.
We have $1 million out of disposal. I'm only kidding. I wish. We already had 2 preliminary meetings. Last week, the grant writer came in and he met with the entire administration to find out what our priorities are for the district. He will be having one-on-one meetings with the administration, get to know the buildings a little bit more. He did speak about a couple of grants that he is going to be forwarding information to us as soon as probably the next week or so. So we're hoping to get busy and start working with them and get the ball rolling.
Is one of...
Yes, another thing also that he mentioned at our meeting, he would like the community, all the PTAs involved as well, PTOs, because there are grants for beautification of the buildings, things such as that are available out in some grants. So, my hope is to also have the PTAs come to one of the meetings with the grant writer and see what's out there that they would like to, to look for in terms of grants. So we're moving in the right direction.
Who is he going to meet with for the leveling of the practice field? Grant money for the practice field to make it level.
Again, the administration the grant writer gave me a list of priorities. So we're going to start from the top, possibly technology, which is one of our greatest needs here, and work our way down. So if that is part of the priorities, we will get to it.
Well, I think Mrs. Gershio said she was going to make it one of the priorities.
Okay, if Mrs. Gershio gave me that for the list, it'll be
It was
there.
put on the list.
It will be on the list.
And your
Yes.
hair is different. Your hair is different.
Thank you for noticing.
I didn't know who was sitting there. And how about the handrails at the visitors' bleachers?
Jake, if that makes the list, it'll be part of what we will look for in grants. Yes.
What would happen if someone injured themselves going up and down visitors' bleachers?
Yeah, we do have a section that's handicap access, which is the home section.
That's on the other side.
Right. Yes. That's all we need.
Now comes Thanksgiving Day.
Mhm.
Do you think Roselle will come and sit with us?
Well, that would be the friendly thing to do. It is a friendly game.
Hey, they're coming to the Dad's Club meeting tomorrow night for our BOE Meeting.
What was that?
What's that?
I work in Roselle, so the kids always yell at me for sitting on the wrong side.
Okay, thank you. And what would happen if someone injures themselves? Give it some thought. Also, I'd like to congratulate the successful and unsuccessful candidates for the next sitting of the Board of Education. I went around the school today, when I came here, in the cold, walking. Where do you have your accessible parking space, the handicapped parking space?
It's right in the front, on the side of these, actually right here, right here. It's a sign, there's a blue line as well.
And now here comes a good one for you guys to take care of. Since you're talking about money, send a letter to the state legislators to up this gas tax 25 cents to supplement, that's supplement, but to fill back up the transportation fund, which would now help homeowners. The taxes will go lower. 25 cents, that's a couple of $1 billion a year that our taxes will come down. Now, I don't know who's going to take the responsibility of writing the letter. Mr. President?
Well, it's political. It's not political.
It's not within the board. It's not
to do that. We can take that gas tax and put it back in education. That'd be great.
Well, education and money will come to the Board of Ed, yes. Oh, yes.
Well, thank you, Jake. We can discuss this further in the future.
You don't get a pay increase this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So here's 150 Berlin Street. Jake wants everyone to play the lotto to help the school system too. To help education. I also want to thank Mr. Vita and his brother Joe. Thanks. For coming to the Concerned Citizens meeting. It was a very good meeting because it allowed residents to address officials both from the board and the municipality in kind of informal. And it was interesting because Jeff asked one question, and ended up to being like about 35 minutes of the Board of Ed show. It was good. One of the suggestions, I guess, was to provide an incentive, I guess for lack of a better term, to help residents with the boards weeding out of students who don't belong legally in the district. And in doing some research, I found out that there's an actual law that the municipality has that I remembered it, but I didn't realize why it was there, that they can actually go after landlords who illegally house families, right? Remember that? They illegally house families. And then if the student is found to not legally be supposed to be in the district, that the town goes after the landlord. And correct, and they make them pay because that was another question. One question was, is the district reimbursed for any education because it's a tuition for students who don't belong, who are deemed not to belong in the system? And the second one was, how could residents become more involved or more a part of letting the board know? Because Jeff, rightfully so, explained that it's not just, someone calls and says they don't belong here, and then all of a sudden that person's kicked out. It's a pretty long process. And it's a pretty, it has to be really proven beyond reasonable doubt that this person doesn't belong. So I didn't know that that law was there, and I don't know if the board knew or if the district has any discussions with maybe the municipality, since the code enforcement officer would be the, right? I think, someone.
Well, yeah, they work, yeah.
Right.
If they see something because they have illegal apartment.
Correct.
They let the.
Oh, okay.
You know, so overcrowding,
Right.
that type of thing, they would let this.
Yeah.
And we've used it.
Well,
Oh, okay. There you go.
We used that several years ago, we used that, and also that law, we tried to use to go after one and it didn't pan out
Oh.
so easily, because it's not, it's kind of hard to prove, so if you, if you're gonna win $1,000, but it's gonna cost you $3, well,
Right.
it's not worth it.
Okay.
You know, I mean, that's the last time, I'm not saying it's something we should look into again, because it might be, worthwhile to do it, but I'm not sure.
And just to make sure during the process, because it was discussed last time, but during the process, and I guess in case of an appeal, the student remains in the district until, and then is the process then turned over to another district? Like, is another district notified? Because what's the stop? Again, I'm using the most extreme case. A parent just goes, okay, fine, and the kid doesn't go to school anymore. Like, do you notify the district of where that child is supposed to be and say, this child should be going to your school?
Yeah, we're responsible as the former district, or the district of last
Right.
residents, to
Okay.
make sure that that student is enrolled somewhere, wherever she was supposed, or he was supposed to go to. Yes, we're responsible.
Thank you very much.
Seeing there's no one else, we'll close the second public participation portion of the evening, and now I would like to ask someone for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So moved, Mr. Harm, second, Mr. Dam. All right, we all in favor? Aye. We are adjourned, and we will see you at December 2nd at the middle school auditorium.